Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is Roxy speaking, and Janine and Rebecca are here as well. I am recording this session this afternoon, and we will post this on our website for you to review. If you have not, if you'll please navigate over to our E-Rate website at erate.fi.ncsu.edu and our Category 2 2020 page. That's where we'll launch everything from today. And that's pretty much what it looks like. Janine is posting in our chat box a link to a Google Doc, and that Google Doc is for you to post your questions that you have throughout our training session. And our training will take about 30 minutes, and then after that we will answer any questions that you have. You can post them, and then we'll have a discussion, we'll answer them, and then you can ask any questions verbally as well, and we'll write those in there. There's already a set of questions posted on our website from yesterday's training, and I will add today's questions to that list, and everything will be posted for you to review if you would like to. So everything will be on the website for you. Previous documents that we've sent out are also on here, such as the Category 2 order for 2020 and beyond, or the eligible services list, which tells you exactly what E-Rate will cover for 2020, as well as our budget webinar we did. That's posted under documents and information. If you're wondering where our old Category 2 information went, it's still on here. It's just under archives. So anything that you might want from previous years is over there for you to look at. We're going to be working in the mini bids and quoting section for today. The two things that I want to call your attention to first are the items that were sent out in our newsletter on Tuesday. You received instructions for how to send out quotes and a list of vendors and what each vendor was able to quote for you according to the contracts that were signed for this year's Category 2 for DPI. And the instructions pretty much look like this, where we gave you an email body, and you basically can just copy and paste that into the body of an email and put in specifically what you're looking for, or you can attach a spreadsheet for what you're looking for, including the item, the brand that you want, be it Cisco or Aruba or whatever it is. And you also need to include or equivalent. You need to specify the quantity, the school, and the bin. And if you're in a district, you'll be specifying each school where you want these items to go and each school's bin. And like I said, if you're only doing one school or you're only buying a couple things, you are welcome to just stick it in the body of the email. Or if you have your spreadsheet ready from your planning, you can attach that spreadsheet to the email. Vendors have been told they have 3 days to respond to your quote request, because we do have a tight turnaround time. And that is in their contract. They have also been told that if they cannot match this 3-day request, they need to reach out to you or respond with no bid if they can't respond to you or don't plan to respond to you. If you have a huge request and they can't meet that 3-day deadline, but they really want to quote you, they need to reach out to you. We've told them that a lot of school districts have board meetings in March they have to meet, and so there needs to be some conversation between them and you. It also will help the vendor in your email if you put in there that you have a board meeting on this date, you have a deadline you have to meet with all of your documentation for, getting the board book together and that sort of thing. So the more information that you can share with the vendor, the smoother the process will work. The other document that was in that newsletter, if you either don't subscribe or you didn't read it, is the list of all of the vendors and what they offer to quote. There's a 2-tab spreadsheet, one with all the vendors listed in a filtering format, and the other is listed by product type. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you're looking for switches. You simply filter for switches, and it brings up all the vendors that can sell switches per our contracts. So you simply copy and paste that emails into the email addresses into an email, and you use the quoting information that we gave you here and format your email and send it on out. And then within 3 days, you should have some responses, either a quote or no bid. And that's how you get your quotes for your Category 2 E-rate equipment. Now, a lot of you are going, well, how do I know what to ask for? Because I don't have any pricing. I don't know whether I can ask for 100 switches or 50 switches. Well, you're just going to have to ask for what you need and then revise from there. And the reason why we don't have prices, and this sheet is on our site, is because we had some deficiencies from the previous 5-year contract. And two of the biggest were that OEMs, or original manufacturers, weren't involved, and we had fixed pricing, which did not allow for competition. So these new contracts have OEMs offering a base discount, and then from there they have picked resellers. The resellers can offer the deeper discounts, and they're the ones who are going to send you the quotes. So we have no idea what those deeper discounts will be, so we can't post those prices. So that's why you're going to email all these vendors, and they're going to send their quotes back with their best pricing to you. So that's why things are set up the way they are now. Okay. Okay, back to our website. So that's discussing 1, 2, and 3. So there's the note on the pricing sheet availability, and those are the two things that came out with the newsletter on Tuesday about how to do your quotes. The quicker you get your quotes out, the quicker you're going to get in line for getting quotes from these vendors. So you don't want to sit on that. Remember, our deadline to file your 471 is March the 25th at 11:59. And between now and then, you've got to do your quoting, you've got to do your mini bid, and then you're asking for an item 21. So there are a couple steps between these two things. All right, so our main purpose today is to talk about the mini bid template, because you're going to get several quotes back in, and you're going to have to narrow down which vendor you're going to use or buy a product from. This is a document we used to create in the past, or applicants did, for a mini bid. So you have a state master contract, you have many vendors that have been awarded that state master contract. They can, several can provide the same service or equipment, and you have to choose among them. So you have to do the mini bid process. What we've devised for this year is a spreadsheet that kind of takes all of this into account for you. And I think it'll be a little easier because we have so many vendors. So the main components are your project information, the identifying the vendors, the criteria and explaining or defining the criteria, the doing the weighting of the criteria, and then actually evaluating with the points, and then explaining the evaluation with your notes and why you did what you did and how you came up to your winner on the matrix. So let's look at, and it's right here on the website, and you'll be able to download your own. Let's look at that. So the first tab, you have 4 tabs in the mini bid template: the instructions, the criteria, the project description, and then the mini bid itself. Now we're calling this a template because it can be changed. We cannot boilerplate this or gold plate it, if you will, and say you have to follow this template. You can change a couple things on it, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. The first tab, or the first set of instructions, is your project description. And that is, let me go back here. this first piece here. You want to talk about your current network infrastructure. Unless you're a new school, you should have one. What's it like? What's it made up of? What are you going to purchase? Are you updating? Are you adding to? Are you ripping and replacing? What type of equipment do you have? How are your people trained? So forth and so on. So you're setting the stage for what you're going to buy. All of that goes in your mini bid on this third tab, which says project description. In row 1, it says school name or district name, so you put that there. It's simple, double click, erase, and put your stuff in there. And then you have a text box for project description. If this isn't big enough, you simply reformat the box, give yourself some more space, and there you go. So that's for your project description. Go back to our instructions. And number 2, using the quotes you've received, you're going to complete the mini bid. All vendors you could have possibly received a quote from are listed on the mini bid. So if you look at the old mini bid, here you only had 7 vendors. Well, in our new mini bid, we've got all of them listed. Now, you can waste time, I call it wasting time, by deleting everybody you didn't get a quote from, or just leave them there. And let's say, I don't know, let's go down to FAR Technologies, and they don't do switches and access points. You can put NA, you can put no bid, just leave them there and put that there. Okay, it's very easy to explain why they're there to an auditor or to a PIA reviewer. Okay. All right. The parts you can change. The criteria and weighting are simply suggestions. Change these to fit your needs. Also be sure to change the criteria on the worksheet too. So here's our criteria that we built into this one. Oh, sorry, I was hitting the wrong thing here. We have eligible cost and the definition, technical sufficiency, vendor experience, ineligible cost, technical support, and single source. You can change these 5. You can cut the 5 to 4. I wouldn't go any less than 3. I'm pretty much a proponent of 4 to 5 when doing any sort of a vendor evaluation. The only one you have to leave in here is eligible cost. But you have to define these. You can't just list them, okay? You have to define them and explain them. Over here on the mini bid, those criteria are also listed here and here. So if you change them here, you must change them here as well, okay? So if you cut from 5 to 4, you're going to cut some columns out. And that's fine. Just make sure your spreadsheet's still functioning. All right. Next thing, enter only in the white space. I call this the white space. So this is your workspace right here. Over in the gray, we have formulas that are going to work with your weights and your points. So you don't want to be entering over here where there's zeros. If you catch yourself doing that and you see the magic, I call the magic, not happening, you've messed up your formulas. Just close the spreadsheet without saving it, open it back up, or download you another copy from the website. All right, so our next step says to enter the cost from the quotes into column C. If there's no bid, enter no bid if the vendor didn't submit one. So that's pretty easy. So you're going over to column C. Oh, hold on just a minute. Let me back up. I skipped something. Weighting. Weighting is in row 1. You may change these weights if you so see fit. Back to the old one, you can see here, hardware, support, and so forth. These points, these in essence were their weights. We assigned weights for you at 30 down through 5. But you can change those. The only thing you have to keep is cost has to have more points or a heavier weight than anybody else or any of the other criteria. Okay? If you cut down to 4 instead of 5, just make sure your weights add up to 100. We used 100. You don't have to, but I would, simply because 100 is easy to work with. So 30, 25, 20, 10, 10, 5 equals 100. And the formula is set to work that way. So please keep that in mind. So if you want to go and change the spreadsheet altogether, just make sure your numbers work right and your formulas work right. All right, so those are your weights, 30, 25, 20, 10, 10, and 5 for what we have set up here. You can change the weights. You can change the criteria. All right, so back to where I was. I apologize for skipping that step. Cost. Cost go in column C. So this is the quote amount that each vendor sends you. So you're just going to work through here, have your quotes in front of you, and enter the amount. So I'm just going to go through here and enter some dummy data. So let's say this group sent me a quote. I'm buying access points and switches. This one did not, because they don't do access points and switches. This one didn't either, because they don't have time to deal with me. This one did. This one did. This one doesn't sell them. This one did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to get 5. Have to watch what I'm doing. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so I have 5 bids or 5 quotes. And you would just work your way on down through here. Mine just happened to be in order. Yours could be all over the place depending on who responded to whatever it is you're looking for. All right, so next, I'm looking at my instructions. It says enter values in columns D through I, 0 to 100 points, depending on your scoring of the vendors and the quotes. So this is where you've really got to decide how you're going to rank these folks and divvy out your points. Cost is pretty easy, but the other criteria, you're going to really have to put some meat into it and take out as much subjectivity as you possibly can. That's where I said working in a 100-point scale is pretty easy. So if you get 5 and you think 5 into 100, so I got 5 quotes, maybe you got 10 quotes, 10 into 100 is easy. I got 5. 5 into 100 makes it a 20-point range. So then you could give 100 points to the lowest bidder, 80 points to the next lowest bidder, so forth and so on. 10, you could do 10 points, 10, 90, 80, 70, 60. And you could divide it out like that. So that totally takes out the subjectivity. So that's how I'm going to work these because I got 5 quotes. So I'm going to go to my lowest bidder, or quoter rather, which is this group down here, and I'm going to give them 100 points. Then I'm going to go to my next lowest, which would be this group here, and I'm going to give them 80. My next lowest would be this group. They're going to get 60. Next lowest, and next lowest. All right, so there's my cost. And if you look here, over in column J and column P, my formulas are working. Okay, so right now, the highest points are going to this group here because they had the lowest quote, and those are all the points that I put into my mini bid. So next I have the technical sufficiency, and you're just going to go through each of these and assign points. Now it's going to be easy for me to work on a 20-point scale between the 20s and the 0 and the 100s because I have 5. Okay? Depends on how many quotes you get. as to how you divide yours up. But whatever it is, document it, write it down, have a legal pad, scratch pad, whatever, because when you get done, you're going to be going over here into your evaluation box and explaining what you did. Because wherever there's a rhyme, there must be a reason. So technical sufficiency, if you use this one, you should understand it and be able to explain it. So this one says, how will this product work within your existing network? Is it compatible? Is it the most sufficient? So forth and so on. So let's say that I'm going to go down here to the cheapest quote. Well, this may be the cheapest quote, but this one will not work with my network. Not without a lot of other stuff and a lot of training. So I'm going to give him 20 points. All right, so now I'm going to come up to my next one. Well, this one will work with my network. It has, I'm just going to throw one out. Let's say Aruba. I asked for Aruba. They quoted Aruba. It's perfect. All right, I'm going to give them 100 points. All right, so I'm going to come to my next one, which is right here. Did they quote Aruba, which is what I asked for? No, they quoted something equivalent. And it's compatible. It will work, but it's not Aruba, so I'm going to give them an 80. All right, so I'm going to go to my next one. They did not quote Aruba. It is not compatible, but it's not as bad as this one down here. So I'm going to give them a 40. And same thing on this one. So you can give the same amount of points. You don't have to always give 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. All right, then you go over to vendor experience if you use that one. And this is your experience anytime, any place. Okay, it could have been the last place you worked. Could have been a reference. I know these people. I've done business with these people. I've never had any problems with these people. I know these people. I've worked with these people. I had a couple issues out of these people, so I'm going to give them that. I know these people. I've heard about these people, but I've heard they do good work, but I've never had them in my building. I don't know these people at all, and I don't know these people at all. Ineligibles. These are things that are not eligible for E-rate support. You would have to pay for out of your pocket in order to make this work within your network. Well, they didn't have any. Let's say there was, so this one is only a little bit technically sufficient, and they had a lot of ineligibles, so maybe their half of their cost was ineligible. Let's say back to your technical sufficiency is only about 80. So you could say maybe it's 20% of their cost, maybe 75% of their cost, and same thing here, maybe 80. Lots of ineligibles on theirs, and you just keep working your way through. Okay, I know how to work this one. My guys know this stuff. We sort of know this one. Never heard of this one. Never been trained on this one. Never been trained on this one. Single source. Do these people sell both access points and switches, or do I have to go out to buy from two different people? All these people sell access points and switches, so they're all getting 100 points. Okay, so I'm finished now. I've got my notes. I know exactly why I gave who what points. Okay, so I'm going to look over here and I see where my biggest points were, and this tells me that this group won my mini bid. Now, if I look back to my left, they weren't my cheapest vendor. They weren't my most expensive either, but based on all my other criteria, this is the most cost-effective solution for my access points and switches. So I'm going to take everything I just wrote down in my notes. I'm going to come over here and mimicking something similar to these evaluation notes here. I'm going to fill out my vendor notes in my spreadsheet right there. And this mini bid is finished. But what if I'm buying more than one thing? So before you get started in this process, you need to know what you're buying. That's this next big set of notes right here. You may need multiple mini bids depending on what you're buying or what services you're going to purchase. Maybe you want to buy a firewall too. In that case, you need to create other mini bid worksheets. Before you get started, that's why I said know what you're doing. Go ahead and copy this mini bid worksheet and create you a couple more. The reason I say do it before you get started is so that you don't have to go erase all this stuff. And for those of you who don't really work spreadsheets very often, it's simply a right click on the tab, click on Move or Copy. You have to click on the sheet that you want to copy, which is mini bid. Click Create Copy, little check mark in the box, and click OK. It will name it mini bid 2, and then you'll get, if you do more, mini bid 3, mini bid 4, 5, whatever. Then, so that you'll know what these are instead of 2 through how many ever, right click on it and click Rename. And if this is the one for my switches and my access points, then you can rename them. I'm just going to shortcut it and call it mini bid, switches, and APs. So then now I know what this tab is for. And the next one, I'm going to click and rename mini bid firewall. Okay? And you just keep going across until you have them all done. Once you're done with all of your mini bids and your evaluations, then it's time to do number 4. And number 4 is doing your letter of intent. So now that you've gotten all these quotes, you've selected who you're going to purchase from, you've got to let the vendor know you intend to purchase from them. So that's what the letter of intent is for. And we have samples of those on the old site, and I'll move them over, or old page rather. I will move them over, a couple of them. So I'm going to go to Archives and go to Category 2. And here's like 7 of them. I'll just pull up one. So basically, it's on your letterhead. You'll write the letter of intent, and it's a letter of intent for purchase for E-rate related hardware, and you can put the funding year, please date it, and you're going to write a letter to the group, or the vendor rather, that you're purchasing from, and say, okay, I am going to leverage E-rate and NCDPI connectivity funding to purchase yada, 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 yada. You're going to attach your quote and this letter to an email. And the big thing is you're requesting what's down here at the bottom, which is an item 21. And the item 21 is a spreadsheet that comes from USAC, which basically takes everything that you're purchasing, SKU numbers, model numbers, cost, everything that we would put in a 471, it puts it in this spreadsheet and allows us to upload it into the 471 so that you don't have to spend hours hand keying in all these tiny little widgets. So that's what this letter of intent does. It serves 2 purposes. One, it informs the vendor you're purchasing from them. You attach the quote so they know exactly what you're talking about, and you ask for the item 21. Now, let's say when you got that quote, you realized that you can't afford what you asked for. So let's say you asked for 100 access points, but the price is just a little bit more than that school's budget can handle. So when you write this letter of intent, you ask for a new quote. You've realized based on that pricing, you might can only afford 80 of them. So then ask for a new quote. Say, would you please requote, send me a quote for 80 and send me an item 21 to match the quote. So there is a chance you may have to readjust, or maybe you might could afford 120. Just depends on the budget and what the prices come back as. So we're asking you to go ahead and ask for what you need and then adjust down if you have to, if it comes back more expensive than what your school's budget can handle. Okay? So that's a sample of a mini bid. So the mini bid will go out in an email to the winning vendor, and it's just a simple email, say, please see attached letter of intent and quote for E-rate items, and please send letter of item 21. I always put that in my emails when I send it, so they see item 21 twice, both in my email and on the letter of intent. I just, make sure they can read. So I am going to call that an end to the training.